Hi, friends. Welcome back. So now we'll get into the meat of things. So let's start off with kind of understanding where the code is stored and kind of kind of see where what we have done to get that working. So this is pretty much the root of all the projects. And if you kind of come here, there is MovieLens cognitive search, right? So if you click on that, this is pretty much the entire project. It doesn't contain the ETL piece, but it contains both the cognitive search backend integration and also the cognitive search integration and also the front end Spring Boot application that actually interacts with the bot. So just this is the link, and it will be in the description too, so you can check it out and kind of go from there. So but if you kind of don't even want to do that, this gives you a nice idea of how the data is laid out and how the one to many relationships that we have in the actual data set are actually collapsed in to make the search work. So if you kind of look at this, this is the ETL, and we'll go deeper into ETL. But if you go look at this one, right? So pretty much for every movie, all this is a one to one. And these three elements, if you see, right, genres, it can be in multiple genres. It can have multiple keywords, and then of course, movie will not have one person, so it'll have a cast of many multiple people, right? So this is like the basic data model that is exposed after the ETL. And if you can remember from the old videos, right, we had actually taken the data in that weird JSON CSV format. We had shredded all the data. We had actually made it into more relational schema with one to n joins, and then we had loaded that into kind of a more relational format, right? So now we're kind of doing the opposite because the search engine needs all the data to be there to index it. So this is kind of the little bit of opposite of what we were doing. So this ETL will actually take the data from those normalized tables and then bring it back into kind of a array format. So if you see here, this is kind of the array, right? So this is the array. So that's the first thing. Then if you kind of go down a little bit, this kind of gives you all the main pieces of the puzzle, and which you kind of walked through before. But just for quick reference, you can actually get it from here. But so jumping back to the Eclipse, if you kind of see, this is the MovieLens chatbot has two packages. If you see, this is the chatbot package, which is actually the layer that the front end bot talks to, and this is where we had deployed it into the app service. And this is the back end piece. So this um, the Spring Boot part here will actually leverage this part to actually talk to the cognitive search, right? To do the actual search and return back results. So let's jump into the first front end piece. So this is like I told, it's a Spring Boot application, and it is a lot of it is derived directly from the examples that are present on GitHub from Microsoft that demonstrate the Spring Boot bot framework SDK. But let me give you a salient feature overview really quick here. So everything starts off with Spring Boot with an application, right? So that's the main annotation. It's a Spring Boot application, which means that it will run as a Spring Boot application. And then this is the important piece, right? It actually injects this bot controller class, and this is the one which will actually look at this slash API slash messages. Remember, if you kind of see that it's coming, all the messages from the bot front end are hitting this API slash messages, right? And that is what it uses. This is the one which the import bot controller class will actually help you to get to expose that the URI, right? But if you kind of go back a little bit, it's pretty much the same thing here to extend the bot dependency configuration, and then that is the main method. It runs your application. As a part of this bot dependency configuration, you will see that there are a couple of methods that you have to do. Um, and this is the add bean annotation, and this is the bot, right? So this is the main entry point to the bot. The dialog bot is the actual class, right? So every bot will have like a dialogue which starts off the dialogue between the user and the bot. So you could have an application like a bot application running multiple dialogues. So, but in this case, to keep things very simple, we have kept just one dialogue, movie search dialogue, and that's the one which will show those four or five turns, right? So you'll ask initially what do you want to search on, then you click on one of the things that are shown, and then you will get that input from the user, then you will ask for reconfirmation, and then that's when you do the search and display the results, right? So that entire interaction is encapsulated in this movie search dialog. So if you wanted more interactions based on different conditions, you can have more dialogues. So that's the top level framework, right? So if you come jump back to the next level, that's the dialog bot. So the dialog bot, if you kind of see here, it also is deriving a lot of stuff from the default framework, because these are very almost boilerplate kind of codes, right? Very much the same thing. Only our business logic changes a little bit. So, but none of these really change a lot. But the only thing to remember here is it extends activity handler, and there are a lot of things here that you can kind of read. But to keep state of what the user is doing, etc., you can actually keep track of the user state in the bot state object, and then it also has a conversation state, right? So you create a dialog bot with all these three uh, as input parameters, right? So then the next two methods of importance are on turn, which means that every time the user sends you a message, and then you have to reply back. That is this on turn, and then we keep saving the state of what's happening, right? And this is on message activity. This is where you get the you actually run the dialog. If you see here, this is a dialog.run, and then we are creating this dialog with dialog uh, that was passed here, and that is the one which we are going to run, right? So it's going to run the dialog, and then it's going to pass the conversation state and then also the turn context, right? So the third method is important is the first message. Right? On members added is a message that gets called the first time a user interacts with the bot. So this one is in fact doing the exact same thing here. We wanted to show the same dialogue. We want to start the dialogue between the user and the person. So this is actually running the exact same thing. If you see here, it applies the dialog dot run, right? So that is your top level code, which is the dialog bot. The most important piece, which is actually where you put a lot of your business logic, is inside the dialog itself. So if you kind of come back here to the next level, that's your movie search dialog. So if you open that, this is where most of the code changes will happen, right? Because this is where your user specific interaction, business specific case comes into play, right? So if you kind of go through this, there are different types of dialogues you can build, and different types of prompts you can ask, etc. But one of the cool things is called a waterfall step. Waterfall steps kind of give you, like if you look at this line, right? So waterfall steps is like basically telling these are the 4 or 5 steps uh, that happen, right? That I want to do with the user. So that is kind of what waterfall steps is. So it will go step by step like a waterfall. Step one, then step two, then step three, etc., and then it will end the dialogue, right? And then we can also add different types of dialogues here, like a text prompt, choice prompt, confirm prompt, etc. There are different types of prompts, and you can kind of read the documentation here. It all comes from the bot dialogues prompts package, right? So and the key thing to remember is everything has got an ID, and we reference things based on IDs. Okay, and then when you create this dialogue, it's actually you're setting the initial dialogue. So that is where the waterfall dialog starts. So like you see, the waterfall dialog is where these are all the steps. So start with this dialog. That's kind of what we are saying here, right? And if you see, walk through this, pretty much, all of these are methods, and all these methods are actually implemented here in this bottom. And then depending on what you're doing, you will customize this. So in this first top level search, right? What do you want to search on? That's the first thing. So you can ask a prompt to the user. A prompt is actually when you give a bunch of options to the user, and then expect a response to come. So the cool thing about prompt is it has the error checking built in. So if you pick something that is not in these prompt options, it will keep looping you back, saying, "Hey, I didn't understand you. Hey, I didn't understand you." Right? And they can put options, etc. A lot of things on the fly. So that's kind of the higher level, big picture view of the dialogue, right? That starts off. And you can kind of walk through the code here. And this is where all the interaction